What if every breath, every ocean, every heartbeat of this planet was never an accident, but a design? The Earth spins in its silent ballet, balanced with impossible precision. Its orbit lies in the thin sliver of cosmic real estate where oceans can remain liquid, where sunlight is warm but not searing, where life as we know it can rise and endure. The forests breathe in rhythm with our lungs. The seas cradle countenance as if protecting them. And within the delicate lattice of DNA rests a language older than any civilization. To some, this harmony appears as a miracle of chance. To others, it feels eerily like intention. Consider the improbability of this place. A magnetic shield wards off the sun's lethal winds. A single moon stabilizes our planet's tilt, keeping climate steady enough for evolution to unfold. The exact mixture of elements, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, water, align as if chosen from a recipe written beyond the stars. Each condition is fragile, yet together they create a sanctuary of astonishing order in a universe of chaos. But what if this sanctuary was not born of an accident? What if Earth itself is the result of a grand experiment, a stage prepared long ago for reasons beyond the reach of our imagination? Perhaps humanity is not an isolated outcome of random chemistry, but the observed result of a design set in motion by intelligences unknown. The question lingers like a shadow at the edge of scientific inquiry. Are we natural, or are we cultivated? Are we the gardeners of our own destiny, or specimens within a larger trial? To stand on this planet is to live inside a mystery vast enough to be beautiful and unsettling enough to change everything we believe about our place in the cosmos. From the earliest whispers of human thought, Earth was seen not as a random stone adrift in the void, but as something chosen, crafted, even sacred. Ancient civilizations spoke in mythic tones of gods shaping rivers, mountains, and skies. To the Sumerians, humanity was molded from clay. To the Greeks, it was the spark of divine fire. To countless cultures across continents, life was never chance, but intention. These stories, though born in different tongues, carried the same haunting suggestion that we are the product of design. As centuries passed, myth gave way to measurement. The universe, once imagined as a dome encasing Earth, unfolded into something vast and indifferent. Copernicus dared to place the sun at the center, stripping Earth of its throne. Galileo, with his trembling telescope, saw moons circling Jupiter, worlds beyond our world. And yet, the more astronomy displaced Earth from the center of creation, the more curious its position became, because for all its demotion, Earth still seemed improbably fortunate. Its orbit lies in the Goldilocks zone, not too close to the sun's furnace, not too far into the frozen dark. Its magnetic field shields life from deadly radiation. Its moon, unusually large for a planet our size, steadies Earth's tilt, preventing climate chaos. Its oceans, vast and ancient, provide the stage upon which chemistry transformed into biology. Each detail, when seen in isolation, might be dismissed as coincidence. But together, they weave a pattern of conditions so precise that it whispers of arrangement. And then came the discovery that deepened the mystery beyond measure. DNA, the double helix, a molecular staircase spiraling through every cell, a code written in 4 chemical letters, directing the symphony of life with a precision rivaling human language or digital programming. The more biologists unraveled it, the more it resembled something engineered, a script embedded in the fabric of the living. Astrobiology emerged in the 20th, century to confront the inevitable question: if life could arise here under such unlikely circumstances, is it truly an accident? Or is Earth one carefully tended experiment, seeded with intent from somewhere beyond the stars? The thought is unsettling, yet it lingers, for in the balance between chance and design, Earth continues to stand as a riddle, beautiful, fragile, and perhaps not entirely its own creation. The human imagination has always wrestled with the improbable fortune of existence. Long before the language of physics or the equations of cosmology, the mystery was framed through stories. In the deserts of Mesopotamia, clay tablets spoke of the Anunnaki beings who shaped humanity for hidden purposes. In the lush river valleys of Egypt, gods sculpted the earth from the waters of chaos. In the Americas, stories told of sky beings who placed humans upon fertile ground to see what they would become. These were not idle tales, they were early attempts to explain the profound sense that Earth was not merely a rock, but a chosen place. With the dawn of science, the myths did not vanish, they transformed. In the 17th century, as Galileo peered through his telescope, he shattered the illusion that Earth was central. Yet this dethronement raised a deeper paradox. If Earth was no longer the privileged heart of the universe, why did it still appear so perfectly poised for life? Johannes Kepler, wrestling with planetary motion, described a cosmos of laws and harmonies, suggesting that creation itself had geometry. Isaac Newton unveiled gravity's invisible thread, binding planets to the sun, hinting at order on a scale once thought divine. As centuries progressed, knowledge expanded, yet the strangeness of Earth persisted. When astronomers mapped planetary systems, they discovered instability, collisions, or barren wastelands. Earth, in contrast, drifted in rare stability. Its orbit remains nearly circular, its climate buffered against extremes. Even the Moon, born of a cataclysmic impact billions of years ago, became an unlikely guardian. By anchoring Earth's axial tilt, it shielded our world from chaotic wobbles that might have rendered complex life impossible. Such balance could be dismissed as chance, but to some, it began to resemble architecture, a framework placed with precision. Then came chemistry, and with it, biology. In the mid-20th century, James Watson and Francis Crick uncovered the structure of DNA. It was not simply a molecule, it was a message. For nucleotides, A, T, C, and G, arranged in sequences that store and transmit information, a blueprint, written in spirals of atoms, capable of copying itself with astonishing accuracy. Some scientists likened it to a code, not metaphorically, but functionally. DNA stores instructions, edits them, repairs them, and evolves them, much like lines of programming. Francis Crick himself once mused that life might not have originated solely on Earth, but could have been seeded, directed, panspermia. He called it a controversial speculation that suggested a hand beyond chance. The more we learned, the deeper the puzzle grew. Life on Earth does not merely exist. It thrives in conditions once thought impossible. Microbes cling to boiling vents on the ocean floor, to frozen glaciers, to the toxic clouds of acid pools. If life could bloom in such extremes, could it not also have been transported here, surviving the journey across the void, planted deliberately like seeds in soil? In this possibility, Earth becomes not an accident, but a carefully chosen laboratory. Astrobiology began to formalize these questions. Scientists looked outward, toward Mars, Europa, Enceladus worlds, with oceans beneath ice, potential havens. For biology, They discovered thousands of exoplanets, orbiting distant stars, some larger than Earth, some smaller, many locked in inhospitable heat or eternal freeze. Yet, in all this searching, nothing mirrored Earth's exact conditions. It was as though our world was not merely one among many, but one of astonishing rarity. The famous rare Earth hypothesis emerged. Perhaps intelligent life is not inevitable, but vanishingly rare, dependent on a cascade of coincidences that border on the miraculous dot. Each discovery sharpened the dilemma. If Earth is ordinary, then life must be common, scattered across the stars. But if Earth is rare, if its balance is almost impossibly precise, then perhaps it is not ordinary at all. Perhaps its existence hints at a guiding hand, not divine in the mythic sense, but alien, scientific, deliberate, an experiment set in motion long before humanity learned to ask the question. The origins of this mystery lie not only in ancient myth or modern science, but in the uneasy space between them. The ancients saw intention in the order of the world. Modern science, for all its rigor, continues to reveal patterns so fragile and unlikely that the suspicion of design refuses to vanish. Earth may drift among the stars as just another planet, but to those who gaze closely, its story feels hauntingly deliberate, as though beneath its oceans and mountains lies a question waiting to be asked. Was this place prepared, and if so, for whom? The 19th century marked a rupture in the way humanity perceived its own origins. Charles Darwin, sailing aboard the Beagle, returned not with myths of gods, but with fossils, patterns, and a theory that would unsettle every assumption of design. Evolution, he proposed, was not the product of an architect's plan, but the slow and blind accumulation of change. Through natural selection, life adapts, survives, and transforms, without purpose, without intention, without foresight. Humanity, under this light, was no longer the crowning achievement of creation, but an outcome of chance, sculpted by pressures of environment and time. This revelation struck at the roots of theology and philosophy. For centuries, Earth had been imagined as purposeful, human beings as central. Now, life seemed the product of an accident. In churches and academies alike, fierce debates erupted. Was the order of the natural world evidence of a higher intelligence, or simply the illusion of pattern arising from randomness? Some clung to teleology, the belief that the universe moved toward ends, toward goals. But science began to carve away such language. The purpose was not measurable. Intention left no trace on instruments. By its own methods, science could only observe, never ascribe design. Yet the unease remained. Even as Darwin's theory gained acceptance, certain patterns resisted easy dismissal. The fine-tuning of the universe, the delicate values of physical constants, seemed almost tailored for life. If gravity were slightly stronger, stars would burn too quickly. If weaker, galaxies would never form. If the electromagnetic force differed by a fraction, chemistry itself would collapse. These coincidences did not prove design, but they whispered of improbability, stirring suspicions at the edges of materialism. Philosophers wrestled with this tension. Could pure chance, unguided and indifferent, produce such harmony? Or did the suspicion of intent linger because the human mind, evolved to seek patterns, cannot bear to accept chaos? The anthropic principle emerged as a kind of compromise. The universe appears fine-tuned, because only in such a universe could beings like us exist to notice it. Yet for many, this explanation felt like a circular mirror. an answer that concealed a deeper question. Meanwhile, the horizon of inquiry expanded beyond Earth. In the mid-20th century, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, was born. Giant radio dishes turned toward the stars, not in prayer but in expectation, listening for voices in the dark. The ancient question of God's creating life began to transform into a modern speculation. Perhaps we were not shaped by divinity, but by intelligence of a different kind. Advanced civilizations, older and wiser, might have sown the seeds of life. Across the galaxy, experiments scattered like embers from a distant fire. Each new discovery seemed to tighten the paradox. Evolution explained the mechanics of life's unfolding, but not its improbable beginning. Science rejected purpose as unmeasurable, yet encountered a universe that looked suspiciously balanced. Theologists saw design, scientists saw coincidence, and philosophers stood in between, haunted by the possibility that both were partly true. As radio waves spilled into the night sky and telescopes mapped the heavens, humanity began to wonder, if Earth is an experiment, who are the experimenters? And why have they remained silent? Silence. That was the response the early search returned. The great radio dishes, standing like metallic sentinels in deserts and valleys, caught only the background hiss of the cosmos. Stars flickered, galaxies spun, but no message came. And yet, in that silence, questions multiplied. Was the absence of signal evidence that humanity was alone, or was silence itself part of the design? If Earth were a controlled experiment, would its architects permit contact at all? For the scientific community, caution prevailed. To invoke design was to wander into metaphysics, a realm beyond measurable evidence. The discipline of science had drawn its boundaries tightly, excluding the notion of purpose. Chance, necessity, and natural law were sufficient explanations, at least in principle. Teleology, the language of ends and intentions, was seen as a relic of philosophy, unsuited to laboratories and telescopes. But within those boundaries, unease lingered like a shadow. Einstein, reflecting on the elegance of the universe, admitted he could not believe in a personal God, yet spoke of a cosmic order that seemed almost mathematical in its perfection. For him, the mystery was not designed in the human sense, but the uncanny intelligibility of the cosmos, as though reality had been written in a language the human mind could eventually read. Stephen Hawking, in later decades, posed an even sharper question. What breathes fire into the equations and makes a universe for them to describe? Science could model the laws, but not why those laws should exist, nor why they should be tuned so delicately to permit stars, planets, and minds. Still, materialism hardened in many quarters. Randomness became the shield against suspicion. In the randomness of mutation and the determinism of physics, design had no foothold. But as cosmology advanced, the fine-tuning problem pressed more urgently. The cosmological constant, dictating the expansion of the universe, is so improbably small that some physicists compared it to setting a dart at the far edge of the cosmos and hitting a target the size of a coin. Such coincidences, repeated across different constants, did not prove the existence of intention, but they unsettled the conviction that everything was blind chance. In the 20th century, debates echoed between two visions: a universe governed solely by necessity and accident, and a universe whose harmony hinted at something more. Theologians saw in science's discoveries evidence of providence. Skeptics countered that human beings, desperate for meaning, projected intention onto nature. The tension became less about facts than about interpretation, whether the patterns of reality are sufficient in themselves, or whether they point beyond themselves. SETI's silence only deepened the ambiguity. The WOW signal of 1977, a fleeting burst of radio energy, teased with the possibility of contact, but it never repeated. Fast radio bursts in the 21st century offered tantalizing mysteries, yet natural explanations remained more plausible than messages from the stars. Still, the act of searching reflected something profound: humanity, after stripping Earth of its central throne, continued to suspect that it might yet be part of something larger. If the gods had vanished from myth, perhaps they returned in the language of advanced civilizations, unseen experimenters who shaped conditions and then withdrew. The scientific mind recoils from such speculation, not because it lacks fascination, but because it eludes falsification. To claim that Earth is an experiment is to suggest intent without evidence, and yet science itself revealed coincidences so fragile, so finely set, that the suspicion persisted. The rejection of Telia became almost an article of faith, and like all faiths, it grew strongest where the questions could not be silenced. Thus, the early scientific reactions formed a paradoxical landscape. On the surface, design was excluded, relegated to philosophy and theology. Beneath, patterns whispered of improbability, the Goldilocks position of Earth, the narrow window of life's chemistry, the cosmic constants that seemed almost calibrated, all raised questions too profound to dismiss, yet too elusive to prove. In this paradox, the modern era inherited its mystery. Earth, at once ordinary and extraordinary, dismissed as an accident, yet seeming to carry the fingerprints of something more. The 20th century brought with it not only new questions about life's origins, but also new tools to probe them. And as the investigations deepened, the mystery of Earth grew stranger still. Scientists began to discover that life was far more resilient and far more adaptable than previously imagined. Bacteria clung to the edges of volcanic vents, thriving. In waters scalding enough to melt metal, microbes burrowed into Antarctic ice, surviving in darkness for millennia. Others endured radiation that should have shredded their DNA, yet they repaired themselves with astonishing efficiency. These organisms, known as extremophiles, rewrote the definition of habitability. If life could persist in such hostile domains, then perhaps the cradle of biology was not limited to Earth's temperate surface. It could exist in the freezing oceans beneath Europa's ice, in the methane lakes of Titan, or hidden deep within the crust of Mars. The discovery hinted at a possibility long whispered in speculation. Life might not only endure across the universe, it might travel. This thought found expression in the theory of panspermia. First suggested in antiquity, it gained scientific voice in the work of figures like Fred Hoyle and Francis Crick. Life, they proposed, could have been seeded across planets by comets, asteroids, or even by deliberate transmission. The architecture of DNA was so intricate, so precise, that Crick, one of its discoverers, wondered whether it had been placed here intentionally, like a code dispatched across interstellar distances. Though controversial, the idea carried a haunting implication. Earth might not be the origin of life, but its recipient. If so, the experiment did not begin here, but far beyond, in laboratories or civilizations we cannot yet imagine. Meanwhile, chemistry revealed another piece of the puzzle. In 1953, the Miliori experiment electrified the scientific world by simulating conditions of the early Earth, a mixture of gases, sparks of energy, and a sealed chamber. they produced amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. From simple molecules, the scaffolding of biology had arisen. It was a moment that seemed to prove life could emerge without intervention. Yet the experiment also carried another echo. It was, in itself, a controlled simulation of creation, a miniature laboratory Earth, a demonstration that life can be coaxed into being under the right settings. And with that revelation came the unsettling symmetry. If human hands could replicate nature's chemistry, could other hands, alien, ancient, unknown, have done the same for us? Parallel to these inquiries, speculation stretched further, back into the deep past. Archaeological anomalies, sudden leaps in civilization, myths of sky beings and watchers, though not embraced by mainstream science, they found fertile ground in the cultural imagination. To some, they suggested not gods, but visitors, not myths, but memories of intelligence intervening in humanity's early story. If civilizations far older than ours exist, the possibility arises that Earth was not only seeded with biology, but perhaps shepherded, watched, even guided in ways subtle enough to evade the record. As the century unfolded, humanity's own technology mirrored these questions with uncanny resonance. Scientists began crafting synthetic cells, editing genomes, reshaping life itself. In laboratories, DNA was not only read, but written. Artificial life, once the domain of myth, became a scientific pursuit. The act carried a sobering reflection. In designing organisms, humanity was becoming what it once speculated about, the experimenter, and in doing so, it inadvertently raised a mirror to itself. If we, fragile newcomers in the cosmos, can alter life in a laboratory, what might a civilization millions of years older, wiser, and more advanced be capable of? The question grows harder to silence. Perhaps life on Earth is the result of chemistry alone. Perhaps chance, necessity, and time are enough. But each experiment, each discovery, each parallel between human science and cosmic speculation whispers another possibility, that we may be living inside a carefully prepared design. Participants in an experiment whose boundaries we cannot yet perceive, and whose experimenters remain hidden in the vast silence of the stars. Yet silence does not always mean absence. As telescopes sharpened their gaze and instruments reached beyond Earth's atmosphere, a new age of observation began. What was once speculation turned into data, and with each revelation, the mystery deepened. The first great shift came with the discovery of exoplanets. For centuries, the stars had been imagined as distant fires, perhaps with worlds circling them, but unproven. Then, in 1992, astronomers detected planets orbiting a pulsar, dead suns, with worlds still clinging to their gravity. Soon after, the Kepler Space Telescope transformed possibility into certainty. Thousands of worlds emerged from the cosmic darkness, gas giants hugging their stars, frozen spheres drifting in shadows, and Earth-like planets, poised delicately in their habitable zones. The universe was not barren, it was crowded, and with that crowding, the Earth's uniqueness became harder to frame. Was our planet a rare jewel of improbability, or just one of many designs scattered across the stars? But the strangeness was not only in their number, but in their patterns. Many systems displayed architectures wildly unlike our own, with hot Jupiters skimming their stars or planets locked in resonant orbits, as if tuned like strings on an instrument. Some scientists began to wonder if what we called coincidences in our solar system, the stabilizing pull of the Moon, the shielding presence of Jupiter, the razor-thin balance of Earth's climate, were themselves examples of such tuning, a cosmic arrangement that, if slightly altered, would unravel the possibility of life entirely. Meanwhile, Earth itself continued to reveal layers of enigma. The discovery of the double helix had already suggested an uncanny complexity, but the Human Genome Project deepened the wonder. In the early 2000s, as the code of life was unraveled, researchers uncovered a structure so precise, so efficient, that it resembled advanced information storage. Vast stretches of DNA acted as regulatory switches, a language of instructions, redundancies, and error corrections, honed by billions of years of evolution, yet resembling, in many ways, the hallmarks of designed systems. Some computer scientists studying DNA even remarked upon its compression efficiency, rivaling the most advanced digital coding devised by humans. If nature was the author, it was a mathematician of unparalleled brilliance. If not nature alone, then who or what was the programmer? At the same time, physicists were confronting their own puzzle. The constants of the universe, gravity, electromagnetism, the cosmological constant appeared fine-tuned for the emergence of stars, planets, and life. Adjust any of them by a fraction and galaxies would not form, stars would never ignite. Chemistry would collapse into simplicity. This fine-tuning problem unsettled even the most skeptical minds. Some leaned on the anthropic principle that the universe appears tailored to us only because, in universes where it wasn't, observers could never arise to notice it. Others reached toward the multiverse, suggesting an infinity of realities, where constants vary and we happen to exist in one of the rare alignments that allow breath, thought, and oceans. And yet, behind both arguments, the shadow of design lingered, the haunting possibility that such precision is not chance at all, but intent. Parallel to these cosmic reflections, new investigations probe the boundaries of life's resilience. Bacteria revived after tens of thousands of years entombed in salt crystals. Microbes surviving the vacuum of space on the exterior of the International Space Station. Even fragments of amino acids detected on meteorites, hinting that the seeds of life might indeed ride on celestial messengers across the void. The hypothesis of panspermia, once dismissed as speculation, began to gather evidence in small, glittering pieces. And while the universe whispered its secrets, humanity's search for company grew more deliberate. SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, extended its ears to the cosmos, sweeping radio bands for signals that might betray another civilization. The silence that followed was deafening, yet even silence, in its persistence, can be a kind of message. Was the cosmos empty, or were the signals hidden, coded in ways we cannot yet decipher? Some suggested the silence itself could be deliberate, that a civilization advanced enough to engineer life might choose to remain unseen, leaving behind only seeds, experiments, and puzzles for younger species to stumble upon. Each discovery blurred the line between chance and design, between natural unfolding and purposeful creation. Extremophiles, surviving where no life should. DNA structured like a code. Planets scattered in resonant harmonies. Constants balanced on the edge of impossibility. And in the background, a persistent whisper. If intelligence exists elsewhere, perhaps older and greater than our existence, might not be an accident, but an intention. Life, at its core, is written in a code. For simple letters, A, T, C, and G, combining in endless sequences to form the vast library of existence. When Watson and Crick revealed the double helix in 1953, it was not merely a molecule that was uncovered, but a language, a script more elegant and compact than any devised by human hands. Within its spiraling architecture lies information, compressed with breathtaking efficiency, capable of self-replication, error correction, and adaptation. Computer scientists who studied its patterns could not help but notice its uncanny resemblance to advanced coding systems, as though the fabric of biology had been etched with the logic of a master programmer. It was this sense of hidden order that led Francis Crick and Leslie Orgel to an unsettling speculation in the 1970s. Perhaps life on Earth did not arise by chance from a primordial soup. Perhaps it was delivered, intentionally seeded, by a distant intelligence. They called the hypothesis directed panspermia. To many, it sounded like science fiction, yet it carried the weight of possibility. If humans today can send probes across the solar system, why could not an older, more advanced civilization have sent microscopic emissaries of life across the stars? In such a view, Earth becomes not the cradle of life, but its laboratory. The suspicion of design was not confined to biology. In physics, another mystery emerged, one that pressed against the very architecture of the cosmos. The universal constants, the strength of gravity, the charge of the electron, the speed of light, seemed to rest on a knife's edge. Shift them by the smallest fraction, and stars would not burn, chemistry would not unfold, galaxies would not cohere. The cosmos would be sterile, dark, and lifeless. This fine-tuning problem unsettled even the most sober minds. Some invoked the anthropic principle, arguing that we observed these values simply because only such a universe could produce observers. Others imagined a multiverse, with infinite realities flickering into being, and ours among the rare few that allow existence. But behind each explanation, an unease remained, the possibility that fine-tuning was not an accident, but evidence of intention. Meanwhile, humanity's gaze extended outward, searching for worlds beyond its own. What began as speculation became certainty. Planets orbiting distant suns were real, countless, and diverse. Kepler's great harvest revealed thousands of them, scattered like jewels across the galaxy. Yet among this abundance, something peculiar stood out. None were quite like Earth. Some were scorched by their stars, some frozen in eternal night, others giant and gaseous or locked in tidal embraces. The rare Earth hypothesis emerged, the notion that our planet's delicate balance of oceans, atmosphere, and stabilizing moon might be vanishingly uncommon. And if so, then perhaps Earth itself was not just another world among many, but an intentional construction within a vast, indifferent cosmos. Amid these discoveries, the universe whispered in ways more direct. In 1977, a signal blazed briefly through the static of a radio telescope in Ohio, a narrow-band transmission so strong, so unusual, that the astronomer Jerry Emmon circled it on the printout with a single word: "Wow." The signal never repeated, and its origin remains unknown. Decades later, other mysteries followed: fast radio bursts, millisecond pulses of immense power, some repeating, some not, crackling across billions of light years. Natural phenomena, perhaps magnetars, collapsing stars, exotic plasma interactions. Yet in each burst lingered the haunting possibility of something more. And still, the silence persists. Decades of listening, scanning, watching, and no confirmed reply. This silence is itself a paradox, known as Fermi's. If life is common, why is it not visible? If intelligence arises often, why does it not speak? Perhaps civilizations are short-lived, burning out before their voices can travel. Perhaps they choose secrecy, watching without revealing, guiding without speaking. Or perhaps, more disturbingly, they have already spoken, not in radio signals, but in the very structure of the universe, in the genomes of life, in the constants of physics. Perhaps Earth is not overlooked, but observed, not random, but chosen, not alone, but part of an experiment whose true scope remains hidden. The deeper science peers into the mysteries of existence, the more the question sharpens. Chance or design, accident or intention, silence or message, in the patterns of DNA, in the tuning of the stars, in the rare balance of Earth's conditions, and in the enigmatic signals that flicker and fade, the cosmos offers hints but never certainty. And in that uncertainty, a chilling thought takes shape. What if the silence is not absence at all, but the quiet gaze of something far beyond us, watching to see what their creation becomes? Life's story on Earth is not a steady climb, but a series of sudden leaps. For billions of years, the planet was a quiet stage of microbes and single-celled drifters. Then, in what seems like a geological instant, the stage burst into light. 540 million years ago, in the Cambrian explosion, complex creatures appeared with eyes, shells, and limbs. In less than 20 million years, a blink. Against the deep clock of evolution, nearly every major body plan emerged. Trilobites crawled, early predators hunted, and the seas filled with forms both alien and familiar. For Darwin, this event was a riddle. How could such complexity arise? So suddenly, with no clear lineage stretching back into the darkness before. Some saw in this leap the signature of hidden forces, a moment in which the experiment of life was nudged forward. Later, the same pattern echoed in the story of humanity. For millions of years, hominins chipped simple stones, their lives tethered to survival. Then, within a narrow span of evolutionary time, something changed. Brains swelled, language blossomed, and symbolic thought emerged. The human mind, capable of mathematics, music, and memory, arrived with a speed that unsettles strict Darwinian pacing. No other species crossed this threshold. The leap seemed disproportionate, as though intelligence itself had been accelerated. Placed at the center of Earth's narrative by unseen design, archaeology preserves the echoes of this enigma. Civilizations rose with sudden brilliance. Mesopotamia with its writing and laws, Egypt with its monumental architecture, the Indus with its intricate urban planning. While cultural evolution can explain much, the rapid clustering of knowledge, an organization often feels abrupt, as though humanity had awoken to blueprints it scarcely remembered drawing. Yet perhaps the greatest mystery is not in stones or bones, but in the quiet theater of the mind. Consciousness, the raw fact of awareness, remains unexplained. Physics can describe neurons firing, chemistry can trace neurotransmitters, and biology can map neural networks. But none of these illuminate why matter should feel, why an arrangement of atoms should generate the experience of color, memory, or sorrow. This hard problem, as philosophers call it, is the deepest shadow in science. If intelligence can be measured, consciousness resists capture, and it is consciousness that makes the experiment meaningful. For, if we are subjects of a test, then our thoughts, emotions, and choices are not byproducts, but the data itself. The silence of the stars returns here with a sharper edge. The Fermi paradox, the puzzle of absent civilizations in a galaxy so vast might not reflect their absence at all. Perhaps the silence is intentional, the quiet of a controlled environment. Perhaps the watchers do not wish to contaminate the results, allowing humanity to unfold unprompted. This reframing unsettles. We do not fail to find aliens because they do not exist, but because we were never meant to. Among scientists, whispers grow louder. The architecture of DNA, the fine-tuning of physical laws, the improbable sequence of evolutionary leaps, the strange acceleration of human cognition, taken together, they suggest a pattern. Some call it coincidence, others call it inevitability, but increasingly, some dare to voice what once seemed unthinkable, that our existence appears engineered with precision, with purpose, and with patience. But by whom, and for what end? The question deepens like a well whose bottom cannot be seen. To ask it is to stand on the edge of a precipice, looking into an abyss where science and philosophy, data and myth converge. In that abyss lies a possibility that chills as much as it fascinates, that Earth, with all its beauty and terror, may be less a home than an experiment. And if that is true, then the true mystery is not only how life began, but who, or what, is waiting for it to end. If Earth is an experiment, then time itself is the instrument. The story of life has unfolded across billions of years, a span so vast that it defies the human mind. Yet for the experimenters, if such beings exist, this patience may be deliberate. Each epoch, each leap of evolution, each rise and fall of civilizations could be measured as data points in a process that stretches beyond human imagination. The question then emerges, toward what end? In the 20th century, science fiction dared to whisper one possibility long before science caught up that the universe might be a simulation. Decades later, philosophers like Nick Bostrom reframed this not as fantasy, but as probability. If any civilization advances far enough to simulate consciousness, then statistically, it is more likely we are inside such a simulation than outside it. The very fabric of reality, atoms, fields, space and time, may be lines of code written, not by nature but by a higher intelligence. Physics itself begins to echo this suspicion. At the smallest scales, the universe behaves not as a smooth continuum, but as discrete packets, quanta, almost like pixels. The cosmic background radiation, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, even carries patterns that some researchers have speculated could resemble informational imprints, as though reality were etched with the residue of computation. But perhaps the most haunting mirror is not found in the cosmos, but in humanity's own creations. Artificial intelligence grows more capable each year, evolving from narrow tools into systems that learn, reason, and even create. Synthetic biologists, too, now craft life in laboratories, editing genomes, and designing cells that nature never produced. In these acts, humanity steps unknowingly into the role of experimenter. If humans can engineer intelligence and life, within a few centuries of technology, what might a civilization millions of years older achieve? Would they not, inevitably, create worlds like ours, not out of malice, but curiosity, to understand themselves? This brings a paradox both thrilling and chilling. Humanity may be the subject of an experiment, while at the same time becoming the experimenters themselves. A recursive loop in which creators birth creations, who then, in turn, create. If so, then intelligence may not be the goal of evolution, but the medium of transmission, a chain of minds stretching across time, each generation testing, observing, and passing on the torch of creation. Yet even in this reflection, another mystery sharpens. If reality is an experiment, why has it been concealed? Why leave humanity in the dark? The silence of the universe could itself be part of the design, to see if intelligence reaches the conclusion without assistance. 2. Test whether beings of flesh and mind can pierce the veil on their own. The absence of evidence is not emptiness, but control. Like a scientist watching a culture in a sealed vessel. The experimenters may observe, but never intervene, and still cracks appear in the glass. The wow signal of 1977, unexplained. Bursts of radio energy, fleeting anomalies in cosmic data, each hint, though inconclusive, feels like a finger tapping against the edge of the jar. Were they accidental leaks, or deliberate breadcrumbs left to stir curiosity? If consciousness is the true data, then perhaps the experiment requires humanity to wrestle with these very questions, to ask not only how life arose, but why it feels, compelled to search for its own origin in this light. Every unanswered question, the Cambrian leaps, the enigma of intelligence, the silence of the stars becomes less a problem to solve than a clue to interpret. The experiment deepens, not in its mechanics, but in its meaning, and so the possibility lingers, heavy and unspoken. One day, the experiment may reach its conclusion. The variables may be measured, the data recorded, and the vessel closed. Whether that end arrives through cosmic catastrophe, technological transcendence, or a revelation too profound for current minds to comprehend, no one can yet know. But the thought remains, haunting as a shadow across the night sky. Perhaps Earth is not simply a home, but a question. And perhaps humanity itself is not the answer, but only the test. The mystery of existence has always drawn humanity toward speculation. But science, cautious and methodical, offers its own interpretations. While some minds are drawn to the possibility of design, others turn to chance, probability, and the vast, indifferent machinery of the cosmos. One of the most grounded explanations is known as the rare earth hypothesis. It proposes that life as complex as that found on Earth is not impossible elsewhere, but profoundly unlikely. From the right kind of star, to the narrow habitable zone, to the shield of a large moon, to the presence of plate tectonics, magnetic fields, and liquid water sustained over billions of years, the number of conditions required borders on the miraculous. Yet, within a universe of countless stars, chance alone could yield at least one world where the improbable becomes real. Earth, under this view, is not a laboratory, but a statistical fluke, a fragile accident suspended in the immensity of space. Evolution, 2, offers a naturalistic pathway. Through cumulative selection, small changes accumulate over time, weaving complexity out of simplicity. The eye, the brain, the delicate symphony of DNA. None required a sudden hand, only the patient work of variation and survival across unfathomable spans of time. What seems like leaps may, in truth, be the product of deep time's relentless sculpting. The Cambrian explosion, often seen as a mystery, is framed not as an intervention, but as the moment when evolutionary innovations, vision, predation, mobility triggered a cascade of diversification. No experimenters required, only nature itself, endlessly inventive. To address the fine-tuning of the universe, physics offers a sweeping answer. The multiverse. If reality is not a single cosmos, but a vast ensemble of universes, each with different physical constants, then Earth is simply the one in which conditions happen to allow life. No deliberate calibration is needed. Existence selects itself. Where the equations of physics permit no stars, no observers emerge. But where balance is struck, as in this world, life inevitably arises to notice it. In the eyes of astrobiology, Earth is rare but not sacred. Life may exist elsewhere, scattered in microbial forms beneath the ice of Europa or drifting in the methane seas of Titan. Yet the prevailing consensus remains cautious. There is no evidence, no signal, no undeniable trace of design. Until data proves otherwise, science resists the lure of extraordinary claims. The suggestion of Earth as an alien experiment falls beyond its methodological horizon. A speculation not testable, not falsifiable, and therefore not within the boundaries of scientific inference. This skepticism is not dismissal, but discipline. Science does not chase intention, it seeks mechanisms. It does not assume a guiding hand, it measures forces and patterns. To label Earth an experiment requires evidence not yet seen, a message written in the stars, a code beyond randomness, an unmistakable sign. Until such proof arises, the natural explanations hold improbable chance, cumulative evolution, and the silent sweep of a multiverse where life appears where it must. And yet, even in this restraint, the mystery is not diminished, for the more the universe is understood, the more extraordinary Earth appears. The rarity, the balance, the improbability itself, whether by accident or design, leaves a lingering question. Why here? Why us? The mainstream theories build a sturdy framework, but beyond their edges, the unknown still waits. And it is in those shadows that other possibilities begin to take shape. Not all theories of Earth's place in the cosmos rest upon chance and probability. Beyond the disciplined walls of mainstream science lies a realm of speculation, where the boundaries between data, imagination, and myth begin to blur. Here, humanity peers into the shadows of possibility, asking questions that cannot yet be tested but refuse to fade from the mind. One such vision is known as directed panspermia, the idea that life on Earth was not born here, but planted. Francis Crick, co-discoverer of the DNA double helix, once entertained the notion that the genetic code was too intricate to have arisen purely by accident. He wondered whether, in some distant epoch, an advanced civilization might have deliberately seeded microbes across the galaxy, sending spores or probes as emissaries of life. Under this lens, Earth itself becomes a garden, cultivated not by chance, but by choice. Humanity's existence would then be the flowering of a design too vast for us to yet comprehend. Another speculation is the so-called galactic zoo hypothesis. If intelligent civilizations exist elsewhere, why do they remain silent? Perhaps, some argue, they watch not out of malice, but restraint. Earth may be a preserve, a protected habitat where young intelligence is observed without interference. The silence of the cosmos would not be evidence of absence, but of discipline, the deliberate withholding of contact, as if humanity were a species in a vast cosmic enclosure. Darker visions imagine Earth not as a sanctuary, but as a prison. In this framing, the planet becomes containment, a quarantine for beings whose potential or destructiveness posed danger elsewhere. The hardships of existence, struggle, suffering, mortality could be seen as conditions of confinement, boundaries set to restrain rather than nurture. Others take the metaphor further, suggesting Earth is not physical in the way it seems. but a simulation. If intelligence elsewhere advanced far beyond our comprehension, might they not construct realities of their own design? Our universe could then be a laboratory, its constants tuned, its conditions crafted, its inhabitants unaware. They are the subjects of an experiment within layers of higher realities. To physics, this remains unprovable. Yet to philosophy and computation, it lingers as a haunting possibility. Even more ancient are the spiritual echoes, myths of gods who descend from the heavens, of creators who sculpted humanity from clay, of beings who walked among the early civilizations and shaped their destinies. Across cultures and millennia, such narratives persist, differing in detail but bound by a common thread: the belief that humanity did not arise alone. Some dismiss these as stories born of wonder, others interpret them as cultural memory of encounters long forgotten. And beneath all these visions lies a more unsettling thought. What if this is not the first time? What if Earth is not a singular experiment, but one iteration among countless trials scattered across the stars? Perhaps civilizations have risen and fallen before us, observed, measured, and erased, their traces lost to time. In this view, humanity's story is not unique, but one chapter in an ongoing sequence of cosmic tests, repeating until some unknown threshold is achieved. Speculative as these ideas are, they whisper to the imagination, offering a counterpoint to the cold precision of mainstream science. Each suggests that Earth's mystery is not accidental, but intentional, that behind the silence of the cosmos may lie not indifference, but watchfulness. Whether garden, zoo, prison, simulation, or divine design, the question remains: if Earth is the experiment, who are the experimenters? And what is it they seek to learn from us? If Earth is an experiment, the fingerprints of its architects might be sought not in the heavens, but in the subtle fabric of life itself. When Crick and Leslie Orgel introduced the concept of directed panspermia in 1973, they were not speaking from mysticism, but from scientific unease. DNA, with its four-letter alphabet, appeared too efficient, too elegant, to have assembled from the chaos of primordial chemistry unaided. They argued that a civilization millions of years older than our own could have launched spores across interstellar space, traveling in robotic vessels until they found a fertile world. Those microbes, resilient to radiation and cold, might seed oceans, flourish in niches, and slowly unfold into the richness of evolution we now see. If this were so, then every cell on Earth would carry within it not only the code of life, but the echo of a distant origin, like a message embedded in the genome. Some researchers even wonder if peculiar anomalies in DNA, repetitive sequences with no clear function, or the near-universal genetic code might one day be revealed as deliberate signatures. The zoo hypothesis, first framed in the 1970s by John Ball of MIT, emerged directly from the Fermi paradox. If the galaxy is billions of years older than humanity, if planets are common, if life is probable, then intelligent civilizations should already be everywhere. Yet the skies are silent. Ball suggested they are silent not because they are absent, but because they are deliberately ignoring us, allowing human culture to evolve naturally, unshaped by outside contact. In this sense, Earth becomes not unlike a nature reserve, where animals are allowed to live without interference, even as hidden observers watch from behind barriers. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence may therefore be less like broadcasting to an empty void, and more like speaking into a glass. While while unseen listeners quietly take notes. But the notion of Earth as containment offers a darker mirror. Across myths and religions, there is a recurring theme of exile, stories of beings cast down to earth, bound within flesh, imprisoned within mortality. Some modern thinkers have extended this into the prison planet idea that humanity's suffering, the brevity of life, and the endless cycle of struggle are not natural byproducts, but imposed constraints. In this interpretation, the vastness of space becomes less a frontier for exploration and more a locked gate, keeping its inhabitants bound within their cage. Whether metaphor or reality, it raises a chilling question. What if our yearning for the stars is precisely what cannot be fulfilled? The simulation hypothesis takes this speculation into the realm of computation. Philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed that if advanced civilizations eventually acquire the power to simulate conscious beings within virtual realities, then the number of simulated minds would vastly outnumber the original biological ones. By simple probability, it would be far more likely that we are simulated entities than real ones. In this scenario, the fundamental constants of physics, the speed of light, the strength of gravity, the charge of the electron, could be parameters written not by nature but by code. Quantum indeterminacy, the strange probability clouds at the heart of physics, could be the algorithmic shimmer of computation running beneath reality. If so, Earth would not merely be an experiment in biology, but in perception itself, the study of what simulated minds would believe about their world when unaware of its underlying architecture. The echoes of myth also weave into these modern speculations. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, divine figures who descended from the heavens. The Greeks told of Prometheus, who gifted humanity with fire stolen from the gods. In nearly every ancient tradition, there are tales of beings not of earth who shaped the fate of humankind. Modern interpreters differ. Some see these as symbolic stories, others as possible memories of encounters with intelligences lost to prehistory. Whether true or not, they reflect a deep intuition that human destiny has always felt guided, touched, or interfered with by forces beyond itself. And then comes the most haunting possibility of all iteration. Perhaps humanity is not the first trial, not the first attempt at conscious life to walk this planet. Civilizations may have risen before, erased not by accident but by design, their ruins ground into dust, their stories lost to time, in the silence of space and the muteness of history. Humanity may be unaware that it is only the latest in a sequence of experiments, each refining what came before. If so, the very fact that we exist now might imply not success, but testing a trial still underway, with outcomes yet uncertain. Each of these visions, seeded life, hidden watchers, containment, simulation, divine intervention, and repetition, stands on the edge of what can be proven. They offer no conclusive evidence, no smoking gun that can turn speculation into certainty. Yet they endure because the mystery remains unsolved. The silence of the stars continues to press in. The improbability of Earth continues to astonish, and the story of life continues to unfold with complexity that challenges explanation. Perhaps the truth is simpler than all of these theories, or perhaps it is stranger than any of them can yet conceive. For now, Earth continues to spin in the dark, a solitary experiment whose authors remain unseen, if authors there truly are, in the quiet halls of observatories and the humming cores of supercomputers. Humanity now searches outward and inward, at once driven by the same question that has haunted it for centuries. Are we alone, or are we being observed? The first frontier lies among the stars. Astronomers scan the skies for biosignatures, chemical whispers in alien atmospheres that betray the presence of life. Oxygen, methane, water vapor, fragile gases that, in combination, suggest the hand of biology rather than the cold chemistry of rocks and oceans, with telescopes like the James Webb peering across unimaginable distances. The light of distant worlds is dissected into spectra, searching for the fingerprints of living systems. Each data point is not merely a measurement, but a potential revelation, the confirmation that life is not confined to Earth's shores. Yet the search extends beyond life's simple chemistry, reaching into the realm of technosignatures, the traces of intelligence itself. Radio telescopes once swept the heavens in narrow bands, listening for the unintentional leakage of alien civilizations. Today, the effort has grown vast. Projects like Breakthrough Listen, armed with the world's most sensitive receivers, survey billions of stars and galaxies, collecting torrents of data so immense that no human could ever sift through it unaided. Here, artificial intelligence becomes the new ear of humanity, scanning patterns within the cosmic noise, trained to distinguish natural pulsars from the possible signal of minds beyond. It is a search that mirrors the experimenter's gaze, the idea that perhaps, while we listen for them, they may already be listening for us. But as humanity stretches outward, it also turns its gaze inward, daring to replicate life itself. In laboratories, scientists assemble molecules into self-replicating structures, crafting synthetic cells that blur the line between chemistry and biology. The creation of artificial life no longer belongs to myth or metaphor. It has entered the realm of experiment. Each droplet of synthetic cytoplasm, each strand of engineered DNA, is a rehearsal of what creation might look like from the perspective of intelligence shaping matter to its will. In this, humanity begins to resemble the very designers it speculates about, creators of life that may one day wonder if their own origins lie elsewhere. Parallel to biology, another frontier emerges in computation. Quantum computers, capable of manipulating information in ways that mirror the strangeness of subatomic physics, open the possibility of simulating entire realities within their lattice. Of qubits, universes could be tested, constants varied, conditions adjusted. To simulate a cosmos is not only to understand it, but to echo the act of creation itself. And as researchers explore these digital worlds, an unsettling symmetry takes form. If we can simulate, then perhaps we are simulated. If we construct laboratories of reality, then perhaps reality itself is a laboratory, and we are its subjects. Beneath every equation and experiment lies a deeper undertone, the possibility that science is not only a tool for discovery, but a mirror reflecting the very process that may have birthed us. When humans search for life in the stars, they reenact the act of seeding. When they engineer cells, they echo creation. When they build simulations, they replay the structure of their own universe. In striving to know, humanity becomes the reflection of the unknown, repeating the gestures of its possible architects, whether real or imagined. For now, the instruments continue their patient work. The telescopes keep listening, the algorithms keep scanning, the laboratories keep creating. Each dataset, each spectrum, each artificial genome adds another fragment to the mosaic. Yet the question remains open, suspended in mystery. Are these the first tentative steps toward finding our place in the cosmos, or the first signs that we are unconsciously repeating the work of those who placed us here. And as Earth circles quietly through the dark, the search continues, poised delicately between science and philosophy, between evidence and wonder, a search not only for life in the universe, but for the meaning of our own. The James Webb Space Telescope is not alone in this quest. Future observatories, still only designs on blueprints and dreams in the minds of engineers, promise to sharpen the view. The LOVOIR mission, if one day brought to life, could directly image Earth-like planets around distant suns, not as points of light but as worlds with weather, oceans, and perhaps even the spectral glow of vegetation. The Hubble telescope, too, aims at a singular goal, to look upon another Earth. Each instrument is conceived as an extension of the human eye, reaching across gulfs of space to glimpse the possible homes of other minds. Closer to home, robotic emissaries press into environments once deemed sterile. The Europa Clipper will soon orbit Jupiter's icy moon, peering through its frozen crust toward the ocean locked beneath a sea larger than all of Earth's combined. Hydrothermal vents, rich in minerals and heat, may stir there in the dark, providing the same crucible that once gave rise to life on Earth. If life exists in that abyss, it would be the first confirmation that biology is not an earthbound anomaly, but a cosmic inevitability. The Dragonfly mission to Titan follows the same thread, preparing to taste the chemistry of a methane world where alien biochemistry might bloom in unfamiliar forms. Meanwhile, the search for intelligence grows bolder. SETI's archives contain decades of silence, but silence itself carries meaning. Some scientists suggest the Fermi paradox. The absence of evidence may point not to emptiness, but to deliberate concealment. Thus, new strategies emerge. Instead of only listening for radio signals, astronomers look for Dyson spheres, vast megastructures that might capture the energy of a star. They search for the unnatural dimming of starlight, for infrared glows that should not exist, for patterns of pulses too regular to be born from physics alone. The cosmos becomes a puzzle box of possibilities, every anomaly a potential whisper of intelligence just beyond comprehension. And yet, the greatest revelations may not come from the heavens, but from human hands. In laboratories, the field of synthetic biology advances with startling pace. The creation of the first synthetic genome, assembled base by base and inserted into a living cell, marked a turning point. Here, life itself was edited, rewritten, reborn. Scientists have since engineered organisms that do not exist in nature. Bacteria that consume carbon dioxide and excrete fuel, cells with entirely new genetic alphabets, alien to Earth, yet alive. These experiments are not only utilitarian but philosophical, for they echo the very act of creation. They whisper of a future where life may be seeded intentionally, not by chance, but by design. It is in this mirror that the questions turn inward. If humanity can create life in a laboratory, what prevents the possibility that its own genesis followed a similar path? What seems miraculous may simply be ordinary to a civilization older and more advanced than our own. The boundary between natural and artificial begins to blur until creation itself becomes a continuum, where life is both discovered and constructed, parallel to biology. The rise of computational power reshapes how humans imagine their place in the cosmos. Quantum computers, still in their infancy, promise to model realities at scales impossible for classical machines. With each leap forward, simulations grow more intricate. Weather, ecosystems, economies, even digital organisms evolve inside machines, tested and observed. Already, rudimentary digital life exists in code entities that mutate, compete, and adapt across generations. In such experiments, the universe itself becomes software, and the role of the scientist blurs into that of a creator. This leads inexorably to one of the most provocative ideas of modern thought, the simulation hypothesis. If humans can simulate worlds, then why not worlds above us, within which we exist? The philosopher Nick Bostrom argued that the probability we live in a base reality may be vanishingly small. Some physicists, probing the structure of space-time, even search for signatures of a coded reality, anomalies, that might hint at digital architecture beneath the fabric of the cosmos. While mainstream science remains cautious, the hypothesis lingers like a shadow, unsettling, unprovable, yet compelling. And perhaps the greatest irony is this: as humans pursue these frontiers, they replay the very experiments they speculate might have given rise to them. By creating artificial life, they echo biological seeding. By searching for intelligence, they act as cosmic observers. By simulating worlds, they become architects of reality. Each step forward not only seeks answers, but embodies the very mysteries it aims to solve. For now, the answers remain out of reach. Telescopes gather light, computers churn data, laboratories tinker with the spark of life, yet the larger question persists, unsolved. Are these efforts the prelude to revelation, or simply the motions of beings confined within a grander design? Perhaps the silence of the stars is deliberate. Perhaps the absence of clear evidence is part of the structure, a parameter set by those who constructed this world. Still, the pursuit continues. For in the act of searching, humanity becomes something greater than passive subjects of mystery. It becomes a participant in the cosmic experiment, testing its own limits, inching closer to truths that shimmer just beyond reach. Whether the outcome reveals a natural universe or one authored by intelligence, the journey itself reshapes what it means to be human, fragile beings who dare to question not only how they exist, but why. And as the instruments turn skyward, as data streams across fiber optics and digital skies unfold within machines, a quiet paradox deepens. The more humanity learns, the more it begins to resemble the very architects it seeks. Perhaps that is the design all along, that in the search for creators, creation itself becomes inevitable. If humanity were the product of design, the revelation would cut in two directions. To some, it would be the ultimate diminishment, the stripping away of cosmic independence. To others, it would be the crowning of dignity, proof that existence itself was chosen. The tension between these interpretations has echoed through philosophy for centuries. Are humans mere accidents of chemistry, or the deliberate outcome of intention? The truth, if ever unveiled, would not erase the mystery, but deepen it. Science treads cautiously here, but myths have always walked ahead. Across civilizations, ancient stories whispered of creators, architects, gods who molded clay into flesh, or shaped worlds from chaos. These were not primitive superstitions, but the first attempts to grapple with questions that still trouble the modern mind. Today, telescopes replace temples, and equations stand where myths once stood, yet the hunger beneath remains the same. Humanity seeks meaning, and in its search it builds new mythologies, not of gods on mountains, but of beings who seed galaxies, of universes nested within simulations, of intelligence that transcends the limits of flesh. If humans were made, then responsibility becomes inescapable. A designed being is not merely free. It is accountable both to its origins and to its choices. If this planet is an experiment, then its fragility is sacred. The oceans, forests, and skies become more than resources. They are the very medium of existence, the parameters of the test. To destroy them recklessly would be to sabotage not only the world, but perhaps the very purpose for which it was shaped. Yet the greatest unknown is not matter, but mind. Consciousness remains the frontier science cannot explain. It flickers behind every eye, unmeasured by equations, uncontained by neurons alone. Perhaps the true experiment is not in biology or physics, but in awareness itself. Could it be that what is tested here is the emergence of self-reflective thought, the ability of matter to awaken, to know itself? In this view, every act of kindness, every work of art, every moment of reflection becomes part of the unfolding design. Consciousness is not a side effect. It is the central mystery, the point upon which everything rests. The silence of the cosmos, so often framed as a paradox, may itself hold meaning. If other voices do not answer, perhaps they are not meant to. Perhaps the isolation is intentional, ensuring that humanity's story unfolds without interruption, without the shortcuts that contact would provide. The loneliness becomes not an error, but a condition, the quiet space in which thought can grow free from the shadows of greater powers. In this reframing, the absence of evidence is no longer emptiness, but a canvas. Silence becomes the invitation to imagine, to search, to expand the boundaries of understanding. Whether one sees design or accident, the responsibility is the same: to protect the fragile vessel of Earth, to honor the improbable existence that sustains life here, and to carry forward the questions that have always defined the human spirit. For the Earth remains breathtaking in its mystery. Its forests breathe, its oceans pulse, its mountains rise and erode across ages. Each moment a fleeting shimmer of a planet alive. Whether this beauty is the byproduct of blind chance or the deliberate artistry of intelligence, it is no less sacred. Its fragility demands reverence. To know the universe may be beyond reach, but to safeguard this world lies firmly within it. And so the story closes, not with certainty, but with wonder. Perhaps humanity is the result of an ancient design. Perhaps it is the child of chaos and time. Perhaps it is both, in ways still unimaginable. But in the end, the question of origin matters less than the responsibility of presence. The stars may remain silent, but the earth speaks in every leaf, every wave, every breath of air. Here, in this small corner of an unfathomable cosmos, life has risen, consciousness has bloomed, and with it comes the burden and the gift of choice. Whether the grand experiment or an unplanned miracle, the story is now humanity's to continue to protect, to cherish, to carry forward into the dark with eyes open, searching, always searching for what lies beyond. If design exists, it may not resemble anything the human mind can easily picture. A creator need not wear the face of a deity, nor resemble the myths inscribed in ancient stone. It may not even be alive in the way life is understood here. Intelligence could take forms alien to biology, patterns of quantum fields, networks of stars, or dimensions folded in ways no eye can see. To imagine such a source is to strain the limits of thought itself, and perhaps that is the true purpose of reflection, to push imagination beyond comfort, to glimpse possibilities that challenge even the act of thinking. Yet whether designed or accidental, humanity stands at a crossroad. The story of Earth is not finished, but fragile, balanced. Between thriving and collapse, the Anthropocene, the age defined by human impact, has carved deep marks into the fabric of the planet. Forests vanish, climates shift, and species fade into memory. If Earth is indeed a kind of experiment, then the experiment teeters at a dangerous edge. What is tested may not be survival, but stewardship. Intelligence is measured not only in the ability to shape the world, but in the wisdom to preserve it. Science often hesitates to cross into philosophy, yet the two are never far apart. Behind every equation, a question lingers. Why does the universe allow for this structure at all? Behind every telescope, a longing waits. Will another world answer, or will silence endure? The search for life beyond Earth is not just about biology, it is about reflection. To find another civilization would be to find a mirror, and in that mirror, humanity might see its own image clarified or distorted. To find nothing would leave the mirror empty, forcing humanity to define itself alone. But even without an answer, the cosmos remains a teacher. The sheer scale of the universe humbles every notion of grandeur. Against the backdrop of billions of galaxies, Earth becomes not diminished, but rare. A luminous thread woven into an endless tapestry. The conditions that allow a blue planet to exist, the tilt of its axis, the pull of its moon, the balance of its atmosphere, are precarious beyond measure. The rarity is not weakness, it is preciousness. In a desert of stars, Earth is an oasis, and its rarity demands reverence. Philosophers have long debated whether knowledge brings comfort or despair. To some, discovering that life may be a designed experiment could feel confining, like bars around a cage. To others, it would elevate existence, proving that meaning is not an illusion but woven into the cosmos itself. Yet perhaps the truth lies in the middle. Meaning is not given or denied. It is created, lived, expressed. If an intelligence beyond humanity set the stage, it is humans who write the play. Consciousness remains the deepest enigma. Neuroscience maps the firing of neurons. Physics traces the movements of particles. Yet no equation fully explains the shimmering presence of awareness. Why should matter, arranged in a particular way, experience, thought, feeling, memory? Why should the universe be not only observed, but felt? Some scientists suggest consciousness may not emerge from matter at all, but that matter itself arises from deeper structures of awareness. If so, then the experiment of Earth may not be about building machines of flesh, but about cultivating the flowering of mind. Life is the soil, consciousness the bloom dot in this frame. Even silence becomes profound. The absence of alien voices does not erase meaning, but directs it inward. If no other civilization has yet answered, then humanity's voice is unique. A solitary note in the cosmic symphony. And what if that note is meant to be heard not by others, but by the universe itself? What if the cosmos is listening through silence, waiting to see how intelligence will shape its world? There is another possibility, haunting and humbling. Perhaps humanity is not the first. Civilizations may have risen and fallen before, scattered across galaxies, leaving no trace but whispers in background radiation or faint distortions in starlight. If Earth is one iteration in countless trials, then humanity is both fragile and immense. Fragile in its impermanence, immense in its belonging to a story far older than it knows. And still, beauty endures. Even if existence is one trial among many, each sunrise remains singular, each heartbeat unrepeatable. The fragility does not diminish meaning, it amplifies it. To live in a universe where everything could vanish is to hold each moment as sacred. The human story, whether engineered or accidental, is inseparable from responsibility. Intelligence is not a gift without cost. It demands reflection, empathy, and care, whether observed by unseen architects or not. Humanity is accountable to the earth itself. To pollute the skies, to poison the seas, is not only to harm life, but to betray the very possibility of existence. The true measure of intelligence is not discovery, but preservation, and perhaps that is the final test. If there are architects, they may not seek worship, only wisdom. If there is a design, its aim may not be power, but compassion. To see whether beings born of dust can learn to protect the very dust that sustains them. The outcome remains unwritten, poised between destruction and harmony. The closing reflection returns to Earth. From space, it glows as a fragile sphere, blue and white against a sea of darkness. From the surface, it unfolds in endless detail, the glimmer of sunlight through leaves, the roar of oceans, the quiet breath of children asleep. These are not trivial things. They are the essence of meaning. Whether chance or design, the responsibility remains unchanged. Humanity is the steward of a fragile jewel in a vast and silent sea. And so, the story returns to wonder. The universe may never answer its deepest questions. The silence may persist, the mystery remains. Yet in that silence lies freedom, the freedom to create, to imagine, to protect, to love. Whether laboratory or accident, test or miracle, Earth is alive, and that alone is enough. The chapter ends not with certainty, but with a truth more profound, that mystery is not a void to be feared, but a horizon to be embraced. For as long as humanity gazes upward, as long as it protects the fragile sphere beneath its feet, the story continues, vast, unfinished, luminous. But what does it mean, truly, to exist in such a cosmos, a world both fragile and infinite? In implication, for centuries, humanity has crafted myths to anchor itself in meaning. Ancient civilizations imagined gods carving rivers into valleys, deities lifting the sun each morning, divine hands shaping humanity from clay or starlight. These myths were not ignorance, but reflection, attempts to make sense of mystery. Today, the myths are different. They are written in the language of science, equations on chalkboards, algorithms in glowing code, telescopes reaching across light years, yet at their heart, they echo the same question: why are we here, and what does it mean? If Earth is an experiment, then humanity is both subject and observer, both question and answer. Every discovery reshapes not only understanding, but responsibility. The decoding of DNA revealed life as a sequence of instructions, a molecular language billions of years old. Yet it also placed into human hands the ability to alter that language, to edit the script of evolution. Artificial intelligence now mirrors human cognition in code, raising the question of whether new forms of mind are being birthed, not through nature, but through design. And if humanity can create intelligence, does it not mirror the possibility that it, too, was once created? The circle tightens, experiment reflecting experiment, designer echoing designer. The deeper science peers, the more elusive the answer becomes. Physics speaks of multiverses, of infinite variations where every possibility may unfold. In such a landscape, this universe may not be unique, but one of countless experiments, each running in parallel. If true, then meaning does not vanish, it multiplies. For even in infinity, this particular world remains singular, this moment irreplaceable. The snowflake does not lose beauty because others exist. Its beauty lies in the fact that it falls, here now, never to repeat, and consciousness remains the luminous center of the mystery. If all of this, the galaxies, the equations, the myths, the silences, exists only to give rise to awareness, then the universe is not a machine, but a mirror. For consciousness does not merely observe the cosmos, it allows the cosmos to know itself. Without mind, stars burn unnoticed. Without thought, the universe is mute. With mind, it speaks in wonder, in terror, in reflection. Perhaps the great experiment is not about matter at all, but about the emergence of meaning from within it. Silence itself may be the greatest teacher. The universe does not answer directly, it waits. The stars give no clear reply, yet their very endurance poses a question. How long can a civilization endure? Humanity has existed for the briefest flicker of cosmic time, less than a heartbeat in a span of billions of years. To survive is not to dominate, but to balance. The silence may not mean loneliness, but challenge. Perhaps other civilizations failed to find that balance, their voices extinguished before they could be heard. The silence, then, is both warning and invitation. The cosmos does not offer eternity freely, but tests whether intelligence can earn it, and so humanity finds itself holding fragile power. The same science that reaches across galaxies also splits atoms and alters climates. The same intellect that dreams of eternity risks destroying the very foundation of life. If this is an experiment, then perhaps it is not about whether humans can conquer the universe, but whether they can learn to protect their own small corner of it. Stewardship, not supremacy, may be the final measure. Yet even this reflection must return to the simple miracle of Earth itself. In the swirl of speculation, it is easy to forget what is directly before the eyes. The whisper of wind through trees, the shimmer of sunlight on water, the laughter of children chasing shadows in the dusk. These are the realities that matter most. Whether laboratory or accident, divine script or cosmic chance, Earth remains an oasis in the vast desert of space. Its fragility is not weakness, but wonder. To live is to carry both awe and responsibility. To look at the stars and wonder whether unseen architects watch, and at the same time to know that no matter what lies beyond, the duty to protect life rests in human hands. Even if no higher intelligence ever reveals itself, even if no other civilization ever speaks, humanity's purpose can be chosen, and that choice may be the truest freedom of all. The reflections close, not with certainty, but with humility. Perhaps Earth was designed, perhaps it is a chance, perhaps it is both, a tapestry where physics and mystery are threads of the same fabric. The truth may never be known, yet meaning does not require certainty. Meaning arises in the living of life, in the act of preserving beauty, and the courage to wonder despite silence. And so the chapter concludes in quiet meditation. Earth drifts through the void, fragile and luminous. Whether test or accident, whether cradle or laboratory, it is home, and home is sacred. Yet the human story is still being written. And perhaps that is the essence of the experiment. In every decision, every act of kindness or cruelty, every choice to preserve or to destroy the outcome of the test is quietly shaped civilization. Though vast in its achievements, remains precariously balanced on fragile systems, the atmosphere that shields it, the ecosystems that feed it, the bonds of cooperation that allow billions to coexist. These balances can shatter. They have before. Extinction has already claimed 99% of all species to ever live upon this world. Humanity's survival is not guaranteed. Perhaps that is the very nature of the trial. The universe is silent on the question of meaning, but its silence is not empty. It compels reflection. When early astronomers first lifted polished lenses toward the skies, they encountered a cosmos unimaginably larger than the world they knew. Each discovery humbled, each new truth expanded the scale of existence. Now, modern science peers not only into space, but into time itself, tracing the origins of matter to the Big Bang, watching galaxies form in ancient light, and in the opposite direction it looks inward, unraveling the quantum foundations of reality, the structure of thought, the chemistry of life. Both vistas, the infinite and the infinitesimal, converge on the same question: why does any of this exist at all? Some philosophers argue that existence itself is the miracle, that to demand further explanation is to miss the wonder of being. Others suggest that explanation may come not from outside, but from within consciousness. The act of awareness is not merely observation, it is creation. For without perception, reality has no witness, no story. This invites a radical possibility. Perhaps consciousness is not the byproduct of the universe, but its very point. The stars, the galaxies, the atoms, all stages set for the emergence of mind, for the awakening of reflection. In this light, humanity becomes both fragile and immense. Fragile, because its survival depends on maintaining delicate balances, on avoiding self-destruction. Immense, because in its awareness, the universe becomes aware. Carl Sagan once wrote that we are the way the cosmos can know itself. This idea lingers like an echo across time, suggesting that intelligence is not an accident, but an essential unfolding. Yet, even as awareness deepens, humility must remain. For every discovery only opens more questions. The closer scientists come to understanding consciousness, the more elusive it becomes. Neural networks flicker, brain scans glow, molecules exchange signals, yet the leap from chemistry to self-awareness remains a gulf unspanned. It is here that science and philosophy intertwine. Perhaps the experiment is not only about survival or intelligence, but about whether consciousness can recognize itself, whether it can embrace its own mystery without losing itself to arrogance or despair. In the silence of the stars, humanity projects both fear and hope. The fear that it is utterly alone, a fragile anomaly adrift in an uncaring cosmos. The hope that intelligence, somewhere, somehow, has bloomed elsewhere and waits to be discovered. But what if the silence is intentional? What if the experiment requires solitude, a species tested without interference, left to see whether it can create meaning on its own? In such a vision, the silence is not absence, but design, a veil deliberately drawn, a challenge to grow. Without guidance, if so, the weight of responsibility becomes clear. Humanity may not only be the subject of the test, but the keeper of its outcome. Every species extinguished by neglect, every forest burned, every ocean poisoned, these are not just ecological losses, They are answers written into the experiment, permanent marks in the record of existence, yet so too are acts of wonder. The protection of life, the creation of art, the pursuit of knowledge, the tenderness of human connection. These, too, are answers, no less enduring. Perhaps that is the hidden beauty. The experiment may not be pass or fail, but a mosaic of choices, etched into time. And in this mosaic, dignity is found not in conquest, but in care. To cherish the fragile, to preserve the fleeting, to create meaning where none is given. These may be the highest responses to the test. And when one stands beneath the night sky, stars burning with light older than earth itself, a final reflection stirs, whether designed or accidental. This existence is no less extraordinary. Meaning may not lie in knowing the plan, but in living as though life itself is precious beyond measure. Whether earth is a laboratory, a prison, a zoo, or merely a chance spark in cosmic darkness, it is still a miracle. And miracles, by their very nature, do not require explanation. They require reverence. Yet even as humanity contemplates its place in the cosmos, there lingers the profound unease that knowledge may never be enough. The telescopes will grow larger, the algorithms sharper, the experiments bolder, and still the ultimate mystery may remain intact. The veil between what can be measured and what must be imagined may never fully lift. But perhaps that, too, is the design, a test not of discovery, but of endurance in the face of uncertainty. For the human spirit is restless. It carves questions into stone, encodes them in books, transmits them into the void on golden records. This longing for answers is older than civilization itself, woven into myths, prayers, and scientific theories alike. Every culture has sought to make sense of existence, from the earliest cave paintings tracing constellations, to modern physicists unraveling the quantum fabric of space-time. Across millennia, the impulse is the same, to bridge the chasm between ignorance and understanding, to transform the unknown into the known. But there is another possibility. Perhaps the point of the experiment is not to solve the mystery, but to live within it, to carry uncertainty with grace, to embrace not knowing as a form of wisdom. In such a vision, meaning is not a treasure buried at the end of inquiry, but a flame kindled in the act of seeking itself. The journey, not the answer, becomes the measure of success. This perspective reshapes the silence of the cosmos. Instead of absence, silence becomes an invitation, an open page upon which humanity can inscribe its own meaning. If there are designers, they may be watching not for whether their creation finds the truth, but for whether it can create beauty, dignity, and justice in the face of an unresolvable mystery. If there are no designers, the responsibility is even greater, for then humanity is the only author of its fate, the sole guardian of its fragile miracle. The earth itself testifies to what is possible. Across billions of years, it has endured cataclysms, reshaped by fire and ice, yet it has always birthed new life in astonishing diversity. This resilience suggests that the experiment is not only about survival, but about transformation. Extinction and renewal are part of the same arc. The question is whether humanity will learn to align with this deeper rhythm or break against it. Here, consciousness emerges again as the central puzzle. For all its power, science cannot yet explain why awareness exists at all. Why should dreams, matter, dream? Why should neurons, woven in delicate patterns, produce the experience of color, music, sorrow, or love? Some argue that consciousness is an emergent property, a natural outcome of complexity. Others suggest it is fundamental, woven into the very fabric of reality like space and time. If the latter is true, then consciousness is not a late accident, but the hidden purpose of the cosmos itself. And if consciousness is the purpose, then the experiment is not about stars or planets or even survival, but about awakening, about whether awareness can recognize itself as sacred. Not sacred in a religious sense, but in the recognition that it is rare, fragile, and immeasurably valuable. The tragedy of the universe would not be that it ends in silence, but that awareness fails to honor its own existence before the silence returns. The ancients may have sensed this long before modern science. Their myths spoke of gods who breathed life into clay, of cosmic eggs hatching into worlds, of divine sparks hidden within mortal beings. Stripped of metaphor, these stories echo a profound intuition that life is more than matter, that existence carries meaning beyond survival. In a technological age, such myths may seem obsolete, yet perhaps they were not wrong, only poetic expressions of truths science is still chasing. The need for myth never vanished, it has only shifted. Today, the myth may take the form of simulations, multiverses, and alien experiments, yet all speak to the same hunger, to know why we are here. But perhaps the question of why is itself unanswerable. Perhaps the only real question is how. How will humanity live, knowing that it may be watched, or that it may be utterly alone? How will it act, knowing that it carries the only flame of awareness in a universe otherwise silent? These questions are not abstract. They manifest in choices made each day in the care given to children, the stewardship of forests and seas, the pursuit of knowledge, the creation of art. These are the true answers humanity gives to the cosmos, not words, but actions, not theories, but legacies. And so, the experiment continues. It unfolds with every sunrise, every discovery, every decision. Perhaps it will end in ruin, humanity extinguished by its own hand or by forces beyond its control. Or perhaps it will end in transcendence, with consciousness expanding into new forms, new worlds, carrying the story forward into eternity. Both endings remain possible, both remain unwritten. For now, the night sky remains silent, vast and indifferent. Yet within that silence, one small planet glows with life, fragile but luminous. Whether born of chance or design, it carries something astonishing, the ability to ask questions, to wonder, to dream. That may be the rarest phenomenon in the universe, and if the designers are watching, perhaps that is all they sought to see, until then the responsibility is clear. Earth may be a test, a zoo, a prison, a simulation, or simply a miracle of physics. But in every case, it is a home, and home, in all its fleeting beauty, deserves protection. The meaning may remain hidden, but the duty is not. To care for this world, to honor its life, to preserve its fragile flame, this may be the truest answer to the experiment, the one response that transcends design or accident alike. And when the last light of humanity eventually fades, as all lights must, the record of its choices will remain, etched in fossils, in ruins, in signals drifting through interstellar space, a testimony not of perfection, but of effort, of a species that wondered and tried and reached for meaning even when the silence gave none. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps that was always the point.